Hey there, you're listening to Unwind Friday with Nishant, Aashwita, and Lakshmi. Today we're going to trace how, what, and why we think about films, movies, directors, and storytelling. Today we're going to look at a director who is loved by critics, and we're going to make an attempt in understanding why do they love them.
So, who are we talking about today?
Anubhav Sinha. We are going to talk about Article 15 and Thappad.
Yeah.
So, Aashwita, what do you think about it?
So, the first movie I ever saw of Anubhav Sinha's was Ravan. And to be very fair, Ravan versus Article 15 and Thappad, it was a journey for himself as a director and also for us as an audience. So, typically, Ravan was a complete Bollywood masala with, villain and a heroine and an item song and completely as same as Bollywood ever offers. So that's there. But then we've shifted on to Article 15 and Thappad. So ma'am, what do you think about
I think, as you mentioned about Ravan, except for Rekon, I think nobody really looked out or remembers Ravan. So somewhere, the whole idea that Ravan is done by Anubhav Sinha seems very daunting. I mean, now when I look back, I didn't even know that it was done by Anubhav Sinha. And for me, I think it's what really drew attention to Anubhav Sinha probably was the whole idea that the awards he won this year and last year for Article 15, and suddenly you try to trace and understand, who did this, who's this director, and you realize that he's done Thappad also, and then you're a little surprised that probably he had a bad phase, or probably he wasn't really yeah, so he probably woke up one day and decided nahi abhi mujhe batana hai what is there in my head rather than doing commercial stupid films. Sorry for calling stupid, but then
exactly. Like it does not go with his own image. You don't realize that Thappad and Article 15 too serious a movie, and also questioning lots of things in the society happening in and around, and also the same director has done Ravan. So I think it has been an incredible journey for him in terms of from Ravan coming to winning lots of awards for movies like Thappad and Article 15. So I think it's a great movie to discuss, and probably we can look into more deeper understanding of those two movies per se. So
let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Yes.
So how does a movie like Article 15 and Thappad unravel to you?
I think for both movies actually, when I was watching both of them, I kind of felt that there was this whole act that was there, and it kind of so the entire movie has this you have your characters are introduced, and you kind of are introduced to the whole set, the context, and then you realize that there's this act, and after the act slowly the movie kind of unfolds, and then you realize that the entire context building, the entire build up that was there till the act kind of you start realizing, that's where the real probably the real deal starts. So even for both Thappad especially, the act of Thappad itself, where the Amrita, the protagonist, she kind of is living this wonderful life, she's happy, she's singing, she's making tea, she's involved, and then the act of Thappad really changes the whole track. That this is where you are, you're involved and you're moving with the film. And similarly with Article 15, where so there's no mystery. You know that the act is there. So in Article 15, you see that these three girls have been raped and they are murdered, and you know that one girl is missing. So you really are not wondering throughout that what is exactly that happened. So it's not a mystery, but the whole idea that what exactly happened, what exactly was the cause, and what exactly is the reason why the act happened. So it revolves around this act, and that's something which I felt was very similar in both these films.
That's absolutely correct. But then I would like to make some points here, in terms of is it really about those acts wherein, Thappad is the act that you're referring to, and in Article 15 is the Article 15 itself, like the title suggests. But then in Thappad, is it really the act? Thappad hi to hai usme, big deal, And in Article 15, it's like, more than the Article 15, it's about, औकात and, jo hum denge wahi tumhari औकात hai wala conversations which have come. So is it really about to explore those particular act at the same time, or is it about the whole building up of that particular act, and at the same time, the whole composition of the movie that comes together, and then the final sort of event that happens? So I think those are again pointers that, what do you think?
For me, to be very honest, if you look at एक तो नाम ही थप्पड़ है और दूसरे का नाम Article 15 है, you are quite aware of the fact that this is what the major event is, what it is all about. But for me, a really good idea, a very good composition that happened in Article was you are aware that it's a rape, you are aware that it's a murder, but it is never fully shown to us. It is shown to us in parts. Like you first see the fact that they are enclosed in a bus, that somebody slapped them, then there are the bodies that are shown. Then the protagonist Ranjan actually goes, and then he looks into these different parts of the movie. Then the mystery involves, okay, maybe bus mein unka rape hua tha. Then he gets the evidence. He goes into the school and then he goes into their room. Then he realizes maybe they were gagged and they were tied over here. Then he goes to where he finds out one of them was the culprit. When he finds the chappal, then he realizes, acha, maybe the girls would have spread. Then when he finally meets those people, the whole story, even the act in itself, was so part by part by part. It finally, when the movie finished, you actually realize कि यार हमने कभी act देखा नहीं है, हमें उसके नजरिए से दिख रहा है वो पूरी चीज. Whereas on Thappad, it was something like I said, told you a little before, कि you see the movie initially, it's so rosy, you never really realize कि यार इनके साथ कुछ होने वाला है, and then that act happens and you literally settle down a little, you're like, oh shit. And there are some glimpses कि something is wrong. You realize कि कुछ तो गड़बड़ है. Like you do see the dependency of their relationship, and then that act happens. You're like, okay, settle down. Something is not wrong, and they finally addressed it. So for me, it was that kind of a composition and context to that act, basically.
Yeah, I think to what you said and both of you said, I would like to add the whole idea that both these films have so many layers, so many minute layers that kind of are there and are a part of the film, that it really takes one a little time. I think it did require like a second movie marathon for me to really understand these layers that exist. Somewhere the relationship that exists between each character, and even in terms of the entire cast, if you look at it, especially this is where I don't know if you guys really remember that first scene where all the characters, how a character is introduced in Thappad. So if you remember the first initial scene, it's where these each and every couple is introduced. So it's not like a singular character that you're looking at, but you're introduced to a couple. So you kind of know that you're looking at, okay, probably it's a relationship between a man and a woman or a husband and wife. So there is something that's going on.
Yes.
So there are couples shown, and then that one orange lollipop, that
candy,
candy that everyone has. So you know that there is this domestic help and she and her husband are there. Then there is the lawyer who is meeting someone else who's not her husband. So then there is the main protagonist Amrita and Vikram, and similarly you have Amrita's parents and you have Vikram's parents. So you kind of are in the beginning itself, the context is set. So you know that it's about couples, you know that it's about relationships. Now this understanding of relationship kind of slowly, you kind of understand that how do they all fit in? How do they all kind of become intertwined in each other's lives? And this happens post Thappad. So till Thappad, you feel all are happy in their own relationship, everything is going fine.
There's no interlink between them.
They're not linked. I mean, the moment Amrita gets linked with the lawyer, that's when you start realizing, now because the viewpoints have shifted. So now you question the relationship. So the whole idea of relationship running in like this very smooth, wherein you think it's an everyday thing, this is how couples are, and then bang on that Thappad happens, and afterwards every relationship is questioned.
Yes.
Every relationship now is on a rocky ground. So this is something where it's that layer that's very interesting. And this similarly happens in Article 15 also, where you see this idealist white knight kind of an idea where Iron Ranjan comes in, he wants to rescue, he is this officer who wants to come in, and suddenly he realizes that it's not something that he grew up with. He does not, for him, Article 15 is something that he understands as a part of the constitution and he would abide by it. But what he fails to understand is that the constitution exists, but then the understanding and the response to that is very different, especially in a country like India where constitution to baad mein aaya. These belief systems and these values existed way before that. So for people to really comprehend and to respond to that, it's not so easy as it is for him. So I think that's something that
I think that's a very interesting take that you're taking. But I would also like to add to your pointers wherein there is this the whole idea about relationship with oneself in terms of who you are, how do you feel, how are you brought up into one sort of a system and all, and then there is this relationship with the others that you have to fulfill in some sense, right? So talking about Article 15, it is about the main lead, the character, the actor, and his own personal relationship and his own upbringing and his own ideals and progressive thoughts. And since he was a young person and coming from a very urban setup and all, and coming to this rural place where he had to form new relationships with his other colleagues who are already into that particular mess
System
basically.
Yeah.
So that new relationship and the kind of negotiations that one has to go into, and also at the same time compromising certain selflessness into that particular thing, is the kind of relationship that comes out very vividly through his visuals and other things, right? And at the same time, even in like Thappad, unless that act happened, like the Thappad itself happened, it was always about the homemaker who was performing certain things and fulfilling everybody's needs and that ways. And then immediately after that particular act, the kind of relationship with all of his relatives and with herself changed, that you value yourself, you have to value yourself, and it is not about the wife or the daughter-in-law of that particular house, but then it is about you as a person who is accepting this particular act or no. So that's the kind of unraveling which keeps on happening across various scenes. And at the same time, so these definitions of relationship are also shot and as well as shown. So yeah, that's the kind of relationship that gets explored across the whole of the movie, and that plays a very important role in terms of and each one of us associated with one or the either of the character there and the kind of relationship that they're playing.
Other person.
As a real time or as a pseudo relationship that you're playing. So you always have that character sort of a playing thing which happens, and you as an audience you understand both those characters which are happening, and that's why you sort of relate to those movies at a very faster pace and very well, perhaps. So
to be very honest, the relationship that I really felt or witnessed in the movies was the boundaries in a relationship. Like in Thappad, where do you stop doing for the other person and where do you start working for yourself? Especially in a relationship like a man and woman, which is so closeted, it is between them. And the other way around of what happened in Article 15 was, how far will I go for my country? Like where do I draw that line about safety, about security, about which is basically system mein meri position kya hai? Uske versus pe, do I want justice to happen? It is also trying to a certain degree push those boundaries, or tell them ki ये भी नहीं. The best part about Anubhav Sinha movies is कि he doesn't tell you this is what I think and this is right or this is wrong. He wants you to just walk out of that theatre being a little more informed कि यार ये भी होता है, वो भी होता है. अब you think which is right and which is wrong.
I think another thing which comes to my mind, when I kind of think about boundaries, and especially when you said one thing is where if you observe in Thappad especially, she never calls herself homemaker. She calls herself housewife.
Yes.
And there's this whole dialogue where she's talking to her mother-in-law and she says that, as a kid, when you ask a girl child, what do you want to become when you grow up? No kid ever says that I want to become a housewife. And then the whole idea that she felt that, now that I'm married into a family and I feel that I need to do best of whatever I can, I thought I'll become the best housewife ever. Now, this is somewhere where you kind of really question and try to, understand what exactly housewife means. What is this idea, this conditional, upbringing that we go through, that the understanding of housewife is. Now here, housewife is not just Amrita. The mother-in-law was also a housewife once. Her mother, Amrita's mother, is also a housewife, and the lawyeress and Swati, her brother-in-law's girlfriend, I think. Yeah. So she is going to. So you're kind of really looking at women and the house help also.
Yeah.
The domestic help. So you're looking at all these characters who are or are going to become housewives, and now you really question what exactly is this housewife? How do you really define this role?
Exactly. Yes.
When you say that, okay, I have to be the best housewife. Now, what is the best housewife? Now, in any other occupation, that, okay, I am a manager or I'm an architect. I know what my roles are. I know what my duties are. Now, who defines this housewife? So, I think somewhere as a society, we've kind of really, pushed this whole understanding of age-old understanding of what housewife could be, and we've stopped looking at them as homemakers, because homemakers again is gender neutral. So probably, Anubhav Sinha somehow has, through his storytelling, has put us in a conflicted state of mind where we are constantly really questioning that, every time you take a side and we kind of, say that sirf thappad hi to tha. Every time we do that, we're really questioning our understanding. Because we are now questioning that, oh my God, how can we even justify a thappad?
Yeah.
And then every time you kind of side with Vikram and you say that, bichara yaar, matlab,
एक ही चीज तो
shit happens. He says that shit happens.
basically. Yeah.
Which is something that even we agree to.
Yeah.
But then we kind of, come back to the whole idea that no, but then why? Why should he get away with whatever he does? And can we as a society really look at
That
act against a man? So somewhere this whole question that probably she did take it far, probably she did not, we don't know that, but then that whole thought, when you leave the theaters, when you see the film and you kind of, when you sit, you kind of really understand that, oh yes, imagine the upbringing that we've all been through.
कि we ourselves are questioning somebody else.
Yeah.
We did not have a strong stand. We did not say thappad mara hai, abhi chhod de usko.
Yeah.
We all were like, is it necessary? He's such a sweet guy.
थोड़ा ज़्यादा नहीं हो रहा है.
And बुराई क्या था यार? He's a good guy. He was sweet to her. एक बार थप्पड़ मारा है ना. So this justifying the act is something that I felt was, something that Anubhav Sinha very spot on. Like he made sure that we think about it.
Yeah.
So that is something I wanted to add about.
Very interesting fact. Very interesting points that you have put, and I sort of grab attention on this particular point, the word that you used as conflict, right? So this conflict is again related to the kind of act or the event that happened. But then I really want to sort of have a discussion upon where is this conflict happening, right? In terms of if you see both the movies, if you compare both the movies, wherein if you see in Thappad, there are lots of you see lots of domestic sort of a look and feel being added to it. You see the house, you see the kitchen, you see the outer space, wherein there are certain parties which have been held. So there are places where 5 people can come together. There are places just for very private space and all.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of and most of the spaces are within houses, and at the most they are going to each other's house and coming on the road, and that's it, right? As compared to what you see in Article 15 per se, it's a very huge sort of a landscape look and feel that they want to promote, and the kind of the look and feel of that particular landscape that also comes in. So that whole sets the scene, or puts a stage ready for certain events to happen, right? So those are the domestic places or those outside spaces which we already come and see and experience in our day-to-day lives, and those then become sort of a scale that we can refer to, right? We can talk about. So I think that scale is one important factor that he's been able to manage in both the scene, at the same time putting forward what he wanted to show very precisely into that particular scales of visuals that he's trying to put.
To take from your point of scale and to a very large degree context, from the first scene, from the first shot only, Anubhav Sinha makes you realize and feel ki, dude, this is a story about a rural place, or this is a story about on a very large scale. The pan shots are like bus ka pehle hota hai with 3 people, then the next is ek landscape mein 2 bodies are hung. He generally, like first cut shots, you realize puri movie scale based aisi hai, context based rural hai. Even in interiors, when you're saying, you see her routine. It is basically ki unki routine life mein kya change hua hai, kya change ho chuka hai ya kya change hone wala hai. It makes you settle down as an audience. This is what it is going to be about. Then if you shift at it to another navigation, this feel and the texture of the movies. Interiors mein there are colors, there are a lot of, like I remember when we were reading about the cinematography of Article 15, you realize that the idea and the objective was to make you feel very mysterious and very gloomy into that scenario. To start with your conversation about scale and context, I think the first shot of both the movies, they really set the scale, to the audience. From the song that is sung by Sayani Gupta, and over here you have the interiors ka shot, you're going through the routine of what Amrita goes through, and on the other hand, even till the hanging, which was the first few scenes that are there, over here it is, he has a business deal, you're up with him, you're fast paced with that. Both of them are set, the tone, the texture and the visuals of the film are set in a way ki you realize darkness hai isme. It is via that landscape, it is via the visual of what is there, and it is about a lot of people. Because from the start, the scale of even the people that are involved in that scenario is so large. Over here with the interiors with the home का shot, you realize कि कहानी दो लोगों के बारे में है और यहाँ पे कहानी is about a very large number of people that are involved. Not
community.
Only, exactly. It is about the community that is there. Then if you visually look at it, I mean, as far as I remember, the cinematographer had given the instructions that Article 15 is to be shot in a certain period of time where it is gloomy. Like you could have done that in the summers, but he chose to have winters there. And it is a very mysterious unraveling. It is really, to be very honest, UP is already very gloomy, and then उसके बाद to choose such a timing over that with this and that कि मुझे ऐसा look and feel चाहिए, it really adds to it. And on the other hand, over here it is interiors, it is Delhi, it is a really like posh Delhi versus to very आप उसको middle class में नहीं बोल सकते, it's a little upper middle class, maybe like that. So it was that kind of a setting. It really settles you inside कि देखो story इन लोगों के बारे में, and you have to settle, you have to get down into that visuals, into that tone of कि भाई ये है, you have to start accepting, and this is where we start. Be it the song or be it the first shot, whatever it is. What do you think was like the first visual that sticks to your mind when you think about Thappad or when you think about Article 15?
To me, I believe in Thappad basically. So Thappad is there are lots of this common visuals that come. There's this everyday lifestyle which is happening in the houses, and the whole scene that happens at the advocate's office. Wherein the advocate is trying to question the lead actor in terms of is it really necessary for you to go for this particular case? Do you really? And then she in counter questioning she start questioning that was it your fault? Was it his fault? Was it is there something else that you're making this as a motive to get separated and all. So that particular scene was a kind of a reality check wherein a person's narrative is not heard at the very first time. There is lots of cross questioning, there are lots of doubting, and there are lots of those referencing which needs to be taken.
And this doubting and referencing also happens in Article 15.
Yeah.
You are also
Correct.
like the people or the system wants you to believe कि इनकी story सही नहीं है. Like even this could happen till the very end, till you realize that somebody. So Nihal Singh and his sister are very involved with. Till the end, it is such a slap in our face कि dude, somebody that you thought you know so well, despite it being a 3 घंटे का movie, even the sister and everybody is just in shock कि भाई, oh my god, even he was involved. So that doubt is there even in this movie. It maybe unravels really end. Till the end it is to a degree very mysterious. Will you find the girl or not? Will that happen or not?
Correct.
What was the visual in Article 15 that really struck to you?
I think in Article 15, it's that scene where where the entire toilet gets clogged, and nobody really is responding to that. Everybody is like अभी ये हमारा काम नहीं है, किसी और का काम है, ये किसी और का काम है. So there is this entire passing the parcel kind of a scenario where everybody is waiting for that one particular member of a particular caste to come in to respond to the problem, and that person, without any safety gear, without anything, he literally is inside the drain, and he's completely like he only comes up to
Take a breath.
This idea that as a society there's this division of which caste you belong to, what kind of work you're going to do.
That you would do.
So this is something that visual of that person going in and coming out, that's something it really sent that I was completely
But the song that is playing on the other end is, if I'm not wrong, it's some take over Vande Mataram. So I'm like credit somewhere towards background score or not कि you really realize कि your entire जो हम system पे foundation basically बोलते हैं वो 70% जो हमारी पूरी देश की population है उसी community पे चल रही है. And today we are so aloof towards the situations that they're going through, towards the kind of jobs that they're doing. I mean, it is penalized. Manual scavenging is actually penalized, but it is such a thing कि that police, which is supposed to be an institutional building, वो building नहीं चलने को ready है until unless these guys come and intervene. And उन्हीं के लिए लड़ रहे हैं. Those guys are actually on a मोर्चा. That conflict resolving के बाद they are being called over here, और उसके बाद भी today I still don't give two shits about them, but this is their job, they will do it. And I, being a certain caste, मैं उतरने को ready नहीं हूँ. Even that sewer तालाब में when they was like, this is not my job, this is not what I'm going to touch. And it is so regressive to a point कि मतलब just because ये काम तुम्हें लगता है गंदा है, it's for a certain community. Or I will not even think about getting involved into this because ये इस community का काम है. It is both ways. See, if it's a job, right? But to them to even think about कि अगर ये तुम्हारा काम है इट्स नॉट कि मैं क्यों कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि ये कम्युनिटी ये काम करती है इसलिए मुझे नहीं करना है. टुडे आई हैव टू क्लीन माय ओन टॉयलेट, देन आई विल नॉट से कि ये कम्युनिटी करती है. आई एम सेइंग वो काम करने वाला ये कम्युनिटी है इसलिए वो मैं नहीं करूँगा, बिकॉज इट्स नॉट माई स्पेस टू डू इट, एंड आई डू नॉट बिलीव इन दैट काइंड ऑफ वर्क. It's either ways, it's very regressive altogether.
And this is somewhere where, you know, the entire idea that this is one person. See, this is, I think Anubhav Sinha through his storytelling is tried to break the stereotype of understanding a singular hero, or the understanding of, you know, that आपका देश बचाने के लिए कोई आएगा सफेद घोड़े पे बैठ के, somebody is going to come and rescue you. He's broken that both in Thappad and in Article 15, where he really you know, questions the stereotypical understanding of, you know, you are this subtle bichari si housewife, and you know, you actually got slapped, and then what? You know, how can you even question others? How can you even go and do something which you're not really fits into your definition? So this is something where he's breaking that through these films. He's actually breaking that. I mean, Ayan Ranjan, for that matter, of course he is this, you know, like savior kind of a thing, but in true sense he's not really trying to save. In that entire film you see his character really growing and understanding what exactly is happening, and he is trying to wrap his head around and is trying to, you know, kind of convince everyone and to understand what exactly is happening. At no given point is he really rescuing them, because this is not a problem that is just a matter of a film or something that happens in 2 hours. It's going to take a lot of time, and somewhere Anubhav Sinha does appreciate that fact, and somewhere the whole idea that we as this, you know, where we, especially the ones who live in the cities, kind of do get a glimpse into what exactly happens in rural India, not this whole fancy, you know, खेती हो रहा है, या not the fancy side, not the typical understanding of what rural is, but something that exists, the grey area, where I think something that what you said about cinematography, where that grey is captured, where that mystery and what happens behind that fog, and what that scene actually does, you know, bring some understanding of what
even
could be.
Even with her thing about heroes, basically, if you look at Thappad also, it's just moments of courage. Like, उस टाइम में भी जब उसको थप्पड़ मारा, she was in the stage of, she is going through it. You actually feel that she's in shock. Everybody in the audience is also in shock, and she progresses that, like she goes through the data in her head over a period of 1 दिन हुआ, 2 दिन हुआ, 3 दिन हुआ. She's with the husband, she's just not talking. Over here also, Ayan Ranjan, that's his name. So Ayan Ranjan is going through the same thing. Nihal is also processing at the same time. Everybody else, even so if I'm not wrong, Bhim Sena ka jo leader tha, even him, like everybody is in some ways or the other, they have shown a certain moments of courage. अगर वो trajectory में शायद नहीं होता, then today the whole deal wouldn't have been successful. Over here also, if she approached the lawyer, अगर lawyer ने उसको मना लिया होता to a certain degree, even she took that moment of courage कि maybe I should listen to her story. Her sister-in-law, मतलब would-be sister-in-law Swati, even she took कि I need to take her to a lawyer. You know कि it's just कि it's not just about the आप उनके नजरिए से देख रहे हो, but it is not just about them. It is, like you said, it's about different relationships questioning their foundation. Over here also it's about different roles. Not only as an IPS officer, it is also somebody who's working in such a situation. The inspector, the people who are involved, you know, the journalist also over there. I mean, सबका एक role play करके you're breaking the system. So it really makes you realize कि तुम खुद को कितना individualistic जो value देते हो. In the long game or in a very larger game of things or a game of life, it does, like, you need to change, and that effect will have some kind of a domino effect.
True. Very true. Actually, in that particular manner, you know, all these elements that come, you know, the characters, the cinematographer also working behind the scenes, and, you know, filming a particular situation and all, and to bind all this together, the writer comes into the picture in terms of, you know, where does and how those stories has to be affected, like, you know, and how do you put those stories in front of the audiences, right? So it's not just about one narrative which side, like, you know, is teaching you something. You're learning through all the smaller stories which are becoming part of the larger narrative.
But so each character would have actually, you know, it would have required its own script, because every
not just own script, but at the same time the issues, whether it be generic or whether it be specific, was, you know, demanding a separate movie altogether for each and everything.
Absolutely agree
Yeah.
with this, yes.
Yeah. So those kind of narratives, stitching all together, having stories in that particular larger narrative is something which, you know, has been like Anubhav Sinha and his team has been able to, you know, pull it off.
And to applaud
yeah.
them, dude, I mean, look at the writing. Like you said, you have to watch Article 15 once. You have to watch that movie once or twice.
Yeah.
Maybe even 3 times to realize वो आपको 15 सेकंड में कितना सारा information दे रहा है.
Correct.
I mean, it is not only about the movie, about the community, but also constitutionally what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah.
And relationship building. It is, see, if you look at the movie, this is happening. The community is involved. The relationship between, you know, the police and the institutional police versus what is there with the community. Are we helpers? Are we supposed to manage them to a certain degree or not? And to like look at writing, it is, to be very honest, the regional language of Article 15 was, they have the local words. वो
Yeah.
language है वैसा, that kind of dialogue is happening. But some way or the other, and it is so different. So do you remember? It's a very funny scene where he says like get the fuck out, और उसको वो fuck का मतलब नहीं समझ आता है. He doesn't have the पूछने की भी नहीं होती है. And the next time he says it, he thinks कि अच्छा उन्होंने बोला तो मतलब निकलना पड़ेगा. So there is this
Yeah.
conversation that is happening.
Yeah.
उसके बीच में he just goes and comes back. I mean, the writing is so intelligent. It is so eloquent. Even if you're not like आपको नहीं समझ आ रहा है, that flow of that conversation is happening in such a way where it is, you know, you to a certain extent you understand. And to look at the fact that I think they kept on repeating page 7 pe, and the fact that, as in if you look at the crunching of numbers into this, it's a 65% of our population staying in such a place, and we have no idea about the atrocities that are happening. It's such, हम कितने अलूफ हैं, हम कितने unaware हैं यार. And
that really like flows into the kind of songs that have been written and the kind of lyrics. Even there is a regional sort of a song dialogue which is not only been sung by Sayani Gupta, but also it's a sort of a message or you know, introduction of their existing situation per se, like, you know. So those things are again important, and at the same time, you know, that the fact that, you know, how certain, I mean, in terms of Thappad, if you talk about, there is this, you know, the actress keeps on saying, you know, nahi chalega ya nahi marna chahiye tha. That itself becomes, you know, the overall, you know, dialogue per se or the script per se, right?
And this is somewhere where you also look at the beauty of writing, where there is dark humor. There is. It's very subtle. It's there.
Yeah.
The whole idea that, you know, you may feel Thappad mein nahi hai, but Thappad mein bhi hai. If you look at how the domestic help responds to her husband, it's very dark. It's very subtle, but it's there. So somewhere, you know, at no given point are you so involved, you know, you're such a situation where you are in the scene, in the story, and then you realize something that brings you back. This is the beauty of writing, and this is somewhere where I think Anubhav Sinha is writer, and he wrote
himself, writer
for both
yes.
the films. So somewhere I felt that that's something that, I mean, he's done beautifully.
Like you have comic relief in such a serious movie.
Yes,
I mean, it's
that makes it commercially successful.
Yes.
Because the thin line where a movie gets into this whole dark zone of, you know, अभी ये तो information फैलाने के लिए बन रहा है versus something that will reach out to more people. That balance is there, and somewhere he's been able to do that for both films. And that kind of that's what, you know, strikes a note with us, where you know that, you know, when he said fuck, when he said what the fuck, and everybody's wondering hey kya bola. So there is that little tinge, and that's somewhere where writing is, and also the cast. It would not have worked without such an amazing cast.
Look at the cast, look at the actors. You just feel like kya banaya hai sir.
Absolutely. I mean, the wonderful cast. Each and everybody, whether it be a very grim scenario, that guy, I've got his name, the one who is that Bada Seth ka beta in Article 15, where he comes in and stands and he has that, where he has that, you know, that I am the one who rules this place. Such minimal dialogue, but then it does leave an impact.
It does, yes.
Do you remember the inspectors like
Yes.
Brahma Dutt, if I'm not wrong? If you look at his like previous movies, he plays such a cute character throughout, and over here he's such a dark character, and he just gives justice. Like you literally feel like every time he's opening his mouth, like thappad marna hai mere ko.
Like you hate the character.
And he's such a brilliant actor for such a thing. Versus even over here, Ratna Pathak Shah was literally sometimes the comic relief. Even as the mother, but she's like, "Mummy, आप क्या बोल रहे हो?" Like was and to like Ratna Pathak Shah, like she gets so many roles, and over here she has a minimal role I think even Chatterjee over here plus Anubhav Sinha, like Amrita's father, it's the same people, and such a sweet role over here, also such an innocent, not an innocent,
Kumud Mishra is his name.
हाँ Kumud Mishra, yes. तो I mean क्या roles play कर रहे हैं, कितना justice दिया है, क्या workshops they must have gone through, and it doesn't feel like they are out of place. It fits.
Even Thappad has this the maid wala character, you know. You see that, you know, so minimal that character is, and you know, Seth अगर बोलेगा हाँ तो हाँ, वो ना तो ना, आप जो बोलोगे वो सही है, but then at this particular point when the event happens and she knows that okay, मेरे सेठ ने ये गलत किया है and my Malkin is, you know, fighting against for it, that's where, you know, her expressions and her those minimal lines and the kind of information she sends, and also
scene where she keeps the
money back, yes.
There's a scene where, you know, she's paid money for her service and she realizes that
पैसे ज़्यादा दिए हैं,
नहीं, not she keeps the entire money back on the table because she feels that I don't want this money.
They acknowledge her whenever she's doing extra work and all, and after this particular event when the guy, you know, tries to acknowledge her for the work she's done, she keeps it ki, okay, you can't buy me for this, you know, this was something that out of request, that sort of a thing, right?
So I think
I think Anubhav Sinha that way is, you know, so much to do together, and you know, all things coming together, cinematography, writing, dialogues, actor, and all these things, and at the same time, you know, not just that one narrative that most of the commercial movies would opt for, but then multiple narratives coming together and syncing them together, arranging them together.
I mean, he's the edge of your seat. As in, there's not one moment मैं blink करूँगी ना, मैं कुछ छोड़ दूँगी और मुझे नहीं छोड़ना है. It is literally that kind.
I think on that note, I think that is one thing that we all need to do is probably go back and watch Mulk.
अगर हमारा budget ज़्यादा होता तो हम देख लेते हैं. We're really sorry. Please watch.
But then I want to put up a question, like, you know, what is he like high on? I mean, in terms of, you know, like, you know, because
I think that's a question everybody asks. What are you high on?
Because from Ravan to Article15, I think I saw some movie also for research. I think this was Anurag Kashyap talking about Anubhav. He's saying कि भाई मतलब तुमने क्या फूका कि तुमने Article15 लिखा. And he says Anurag Kashyap talks about Anubhav Sinha's man saying कि तुझसे ये पूछ कि वो पहले क्या फूकता था. Because he's actually like this, but पहले he made खराब movies. And now he's really to the core of what Sinha is.
Right.
It was different.
I that always remember that particular dialogue wherein, as you were also mentioning, that, you know, in Article 15 where the main actor's I think wife talks about, you know, this is such a messy situation, and then the actor talks about, you know, we have to unmess it, right? So
Aditi,
she then, you know, asks that, okay, is there a word for unmess? And also, you know, that's where the kind of new approaches have to be put in, and that's where Anubhav Sinha as a director also is trying to put in new approaches to the whole perception of this movie making and the kind of messages that has to be, you know, given back to the society.
I mean, if you look at like exactly what you said, if you look at it, कितना olden tradition है जिसके बारे में conversation हो रही है, and there is this modern people that are involved. He really puts forward कि where do I fit in? Independent India, independent woman, independent man. Where do they fit in into this whole narrative? So kudos.
I think I mean, as you say, you know, that, you know, there is no sort of a book for movie making as per se, and but I believe Anubhav Sinha has found one book. He's found his book to be the Constitution of India book.
He was sitting and wondering अब क्या social issue उठाए.
नहीं, Constitution खुला है, आज हम इसके ऊपर लिखेंगे, and we will spread that message to everybody.
So, yes, that's interesting. Yes.
So I hope he does find something new.
And we don't know that, you know, what another sort of article get exposed to us through the movies, you know.
Look, we had Article 377 that came 371.
Absolutely. You never
Probably we don't want to, you know, go and read the Constitution, but we'll just watch this movie and we'll know the Constitution fully.
Absolutely.
You know, so
very lovely. Nice lesson in civics we had.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you for watching Unwind Friday.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, everyone.
Keep watching.
Bye.